Okay, so you know that thing we do twice a year where we're all like messing with the clocks?
Yeah, springing forward, falling back.
Yeah, daylight saving time, right?
Right.
But have you ever thought about like why we even do it? Like
Right.
whether you're about to have a big argument about it or you're just curious or like maybe just tired of that Monday after we spring forward. We're going deep on DST today, pulling out the most interesting stuff from the daylight dilemma.
Yeah, it is kind of funny, this whole like time change thing. You think it would be a modern invention, but it actually goes way back.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And Dr. Ayesh actually found this hilarious story. So did you know Benjamin Franklin was the first one to suggest changing sleep schedules to use more daylight?
Wait, Benjamin Franklin? Like kite flying, founding father, Ben Franklin?
Yeah. Back in 1784, he like jokingly suggested that Parisians should just wake up earlier and, use sunlight instead of candles.
Huh.
It was kind of like a satirical jab at their late nights. But it's funny how we're still talking about maximizing daylight all these years later.
So it wasn't a serious thing back then, but this is where it gets interesting. The first people to actually use daylight saving time were the Germans and Austro-Hungarians during World War One.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a time to try and save fuel, right?
Yeah.
Their whole idea was to use more daylight and cut back on energy for lighting.
And that whole energy saving thing has been like the main argument for DST for like ever.
Okay.
But here's the thing. The U.S. Department of Energy found that it only saves like a tiny 0.5% of energy each day.
Really?
Yeah. So now with all this new energy efficient stuff, is it even worth the hassle? It's a big debate.
Okay, so quick recap for anyone who hasn't changed a clock in a while. Spring forward means we move our clocks ahead 1 hour in the spring, and then in the fall we fall back 1 hour.
Right.
Seems simple, right?
Yeah, deceptively simple, because even though it's just like 1 hour here or there, it affects like everything: sleep, mood, even your health.
Oh yeah, speaking of health, let's talk about the impact, because I know some people who get really messed up by the time change.
Oh, yeah.
So what's the science behind all that?
Well, it all comes down to our circadian rhythms. So think of it as like your body's own clock. It controls when you sleep, when you wake up, even when your body releases hormones.
Okay.
And the main thing that keeps that internal clock on track with the outside world is light.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So when we move the clocks around, we're kind of messing with our body's natural rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. And that can lead to some serious stuff. Like studies show that DST can lead to more sleep problems, higher stress, and get this even a higher risk of heart attacks and strokes.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking about like a small increase, or is this something to be worried about?
No, this is serious.
Yeah.
The book mentions a study from the New England Journal of Medicine that found a 24% increase in heart attacks the week after the springtime change.
24%.
Yeah, a huge jump. So maybe that extra hour of daylight isn't so great after all.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. So it sounds like there's some pretty big downsides to DST. But I'm curious, does everyone even do this? Is it like a worldwide thing?
Not at all. It's actually different everywhere you go in the U.S. Most states are on board, but some places like Arizona decided it wasn't worth it and opted out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They basically said, nope, not changing our clocks.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about other countries? Is everyone else just following what we do?
Not really. Like, take the European Union, for example. They've been using DST, but more and more people want to get rid of it. They have similar worries about health and messing up daily routines.
So even the EU is having second thoughts, huh? What about Russia? What's their take on all this DST stuff?
They actually got rid of DST back in 2011.
Oh, wow.
They figured it wasn't worth messing with people's health and daily lives.
Interesting.
It's kind of wild how this one idea about time is so different around the world.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, like, what other things we consider normal here are totally different somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's good to remember that our way of doing things isn't the only way. And there are always different ways to look at things. And speaking of different views, let's talk about this timekeeper's war. Basically, all the arguments for and against DST that Dr. Ayesh lays out in the book.
Okay, so who's on Team DST and what are their big arguments?
Well, people who like DST love that extra hour of daylight in the evening.
Okay.
They say it gives people more time to do stuff outside, which is good for you and could help the economy. Plus, they say it can make crime go down because there's more light out.
Yeah, I do love those long summer evenings when it feels like the day never ends.
Right.
I can see why people like that. But what about the other side? What are the main arguments against DST?
People against DST are really worried about those health problems we talked about: the bad sleep, the stress, and the risk of serious stuff like heart attacks.
Right.
They say those risks are bigger than any good things DST won't bring. They also talk about how it costs money to change schedules, people get less done, and there are even more accidents. And let's be real. Who hasn't felt that confused, groggy feeling when the clocks change?
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't exactly make you super productive.
Right.
So yeah, it's like tug of war, more daylight versus possible health risks, economic benefits versus potential costs.
A tough call.
It is. And it's interesting to see how these arguments play out in different countries and cultures. What might be a big deal for one place might not matter as much somewhere else.
Right. To kind of help us understand what this means for real people, Dr. Ayesh includes these really powerful personal stories in the book. One that really got to me was about this working mom, Sarah, who gets totally thrown off by the springtime
Oh,
change.
yeah.
She talks about how tired and irritable she gets and how it affects her work, her family life, like everything.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that DST doesn't just mess with our sleep. It can really affect how we feel mentally and emotionally, too. And it shows that for some people, those impacts are way worse than for others.
So it's not just numbers and data, it's about real people's lives. We're not just talking about some abstract idea.
Exactly. And this leads to a really big question.
Yeah.
What does the future hold for DST? Is it here to stay, or is it on its way out?
Let's dive into that next.
So welcome back to our deep dive into daylight saving time.
We've covered a lot, that's for sure. The history, how it works, health stuff, global perspectives, and even those timekeepers' war arguments.
Right?
But now I'm kind of curious, what would life be like without DST?
Yeah, because the idea of getting rid of DST is getting pretty popular.
Yeah.
While we can't know the future for sure, we can definitely talk about what a world without those clock changes might look like.
Okay, so imagine it. No more springing forward or falling back.
Right.
What would that actually mean for us, our work, our health? Would we even notice?
Well, Dr. Ayesh makes a pretty good argument that a world without DST could be healthier.
Okay.
Think about it, consistent sleep schedules, less of those health risks, maybe even better productivity.
Mm.
It's not crazy to think that without messing with our internal clocks, we'd have less trouble sleeping and less stress.
Yeah, plus no more of that awful Monday morning feeling after we spring forward. I think everyone would be happy about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think about the time we'd save by not having to change all those clocks twice a year.
Right.
It might seem like a small thing, but it adds up, especially for businesses that have to stick to tight schedules.
That's true, but let's be real, there are always two sides to things. What about the bad parts of getting rid of DST?
Oh, of course, change is hard, even when it's good.
Yeah.
One of the big worries is darker mornings, especially in the winter.
Yeah, that would be tough for a lot of people, especially those who have to commute early or kids going to school in the dark.
Right. And it could affect outdoor stuff, too.
Mm-hmm.
People might not want to go for a run or bike ride in the morning if it's still dark out.
And we can't forget about the economic side. Some businesses, like stores and tourist spots, really like those long daylight hours in the evening.
Absolutely. They say DST makes people shop more and spend more money. So if we get rid of it, some businesses might lose money.
So it sounds like there would be some winners and losers if we got rid of DST.
Yeah,
It wouldn't be easy to figure out all those trade-offs.
exactly. It's a complicated issue with a lot to think about. But here's another thing. Dr. Ayesh says getting rid of DST won't magically fix all our problems with time.
That's true. We're always busy. Even without DST, we still have to figure out how to manage our time, take care of ourselves, and find that balance between work and life.
Exactly. Whether we have DST or not, we need to make time for ourselves, set boundaries, and find routines that work for us.
So maybe ending DST could actually be a chance to rethink things.
Yeah.
Chance to change how we think about time and make better choices about how we want to live.
I like that it's a chance to get away from a system that might not work for us anymore and create something better. But let's talk about the practical stuff for a sec. Let's say we do get rid of DST. What can people do to make that change easier?
That's a good question. I think I'd feel kind of lost without changing my clock twice a year, even though it's annoying.
Right. Well, the book says start with the basics. Make sleep a priority.
Okay.
Make sure your bedroom is dark and quiet. Don't look at screens before bed. And go to sleep. And wake up around the same time every day. Basically, all that good sleep stuff we know we should be doing.
Good advice. I'm definitely guilty of not doing all that.
Yeah, but it makes sense that without the time changes messing us up, it might be easier to have healthy sleep habits.
Exactly. Any other tips? I'm starting to feel like I need to get ready for this possible no DST world.
Don't forget about other people. Connect with your friends, family, or coworkers who are also making the change.
Okay.
Share tips, encourage each other, even just complain about those early mornings. Change is always easier when you're not alone.
So true. Okay, so we've talked about personal stuff, but what about businesses? They'd have to adapt too, right?
Oh yeah, Dr. Ayesh says businesses might have to rethink their hours and schedules without GST.
Okay.
For example, stores might need to change when they open and close to fit when customers want to shop.
Hmm.
And companies with workers in different time zones would need to be even more careful about scheduling meetings and deadlines.
That makes sense. Being flexible and communicating well would be really important, but maybe this change could actually be good for businesses in the long run.
How so?
Maybe it would make them come up with new ideas and find ways to work better.
That's a great point. Change can help businesses grow and come up with new things. Businesses that can adapt and find creative solutions could actually do really well without DST. It's all about taking on the challenge and finding the good stuff.
Okay, so we've talked about the practical stuff, but we can't forget about how ending DST would make people feel. Time isn't just about clocks and schedules. It's connected to our emotions, our memories, even who we are.
Absolutely, change, even when it's for the better, can make people feel unsettled. Some people might miss those long summer evenings. Others might feel anxious about getting used to a new routine. And for some, it might feel like freedom, like a chance to break away from a system that doesn't feel right anymore.
It's amazing how one simple idea, time, can make people feel so many different things, and it's important to understand and respect those different feelings.
For sure, just like those physical things we talked about, the mental and emotional effects of getting rid of DST would affect people differently. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
So if we're moving towards a world without DST, what's the best way for people to get ready mentally and emotionally?
I think the key is to be flexible, patient with yourself, and don't be afraid to ask for help. We're all creatures of habit, and change takes time. Let yourself adjust slowly, celebrate the small victories, and talk to other people who are going through the same thing.
Yeah, that's good advice. We're all in this together, right?
Right? And like you said, change can be a chance to grow. It makes us try new things, adjust to new situations, and ultimately learn more about ourselves.
Well said. We've covered a lot in this part. Practical stuff, psychological stuff, and even a little pep talk on dealing with change. But before we wrap up this section,
There's one more part of this DST discussion we can't forget, right?
yeah, the big philosophical question.
Exactly, because when we take away all the stuff about DST, the clock changes, the arguments about energy and productivity, we're left with a basic question. What is time, really?
Ooh, now we're getting deep. It feels like we're going from changing clocks to like deep thoughts about the universe.
Kind of natural, right?
Right.
Because when we start thinking about daylight saving time, it makes us think about what time even is.
So is time just this straight line, tick-tock, tick-tock, or is it something weirder, like something we made up to make our lives easier?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Ayesh talks about this idea of time as a social construct. So it's not some universal truth, it's just a system we created.
Whoa, that's crazy. So if we basically invented time, could we like reinvent it? Could we make a whole new system that works better?
People have been thinking about that forever. But it's not just some thought experiment anymore now that we're rethinking stuff like daylight saving time. It's like we're asking,
Mhm.
who gets to decide how time works?
Mm.
Who benefits from the system we have now, and who doesn't?
It's like we've just been assuming time is this neutral thing when it's actually all mixed up with power and social rules.
Exactly. And Dr. Ayesh says this perfectly in the book. Time is not merely a backdrop to our lives. It's the very fabric from which our experiences are woven.
Wow, that's a powerful way to put it. It makes you realize how much time affects how we see things, our relationships, everything.
Right.
So if it's really something we made up, does that mean we can change it?
That's the exciting part. We could move past this idea of time as this rigid thing and make it more flexible, something that fits our values, our well-being, our own needs.
Now that's a future I'd want to live in, but for now I think Dr. Ayers would be happy if we just started questioning our ideas about time.
Definitely. This whole deep dive isn't about finding all the answers. It's about getting curious, seeing things differently, and helping you make better choices.
So as we finish up our look at daylight saving time, let's leave you with a final thought from the book. If time is a social construct, how might our individual experiences and cultural backgrounds shape the future of timekeeping?
That's a question with no right or wrong answer. But it makes us think about our own relationship with time. Consider how others might experience it differently. And maybe imagine a world where timekeeping is more fair for everyone.
What a great thought. So what are you taking away from this deep dive? What ideas stuck with you and what new questions are you thinking about?
We hope you keep exploring this fascinating topic. And if you want to go even deeper, we definitely recommend checking out Dr. Ash's book, The Daylight Dilemma. It's a journey worth taking.
Because in the end, understanding our relationship with time is about understanding ourselves, and that's a journey that never really ends.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of daylight saving time.
Until next time, may your days be full of purpose and your nights full of restful sleep, no matter what the clock says.